Don't stop.
Hi, thanks for joining me in the Everything and Anything and a Big A podcast. I'm your host, Zach Reynolds Friedman. I'll tell you about my guests in just a moment. But first, I wanted to talk about something that maybe a lot of couples or people that are dating someone or even with friends go through. So, me and my husband talked last night and said, we're going to wake up this morning and we're going to go on a hike. I said, awesome, love that. I haven't been outside in a few days. And I said, let's do it. And he picked a time because he had something he has to do this afternoon. So we picked a time at 10 in the morning, which is the time I normally wake up every day. And so I didn't set an alarm, and at 9:55, I wake up automatically because my body's like used to waking up at 10 o'clock. And I wake up and I text him. I'm like, are you home? Do you want to go on the hike? He goes, yes. I go, okay. I just need 10 minutes to get ready and we'll go. So I'm waking up. I didn't have any coffee. I just went upstairs, made a water for myself to take with me. And I got a protein bar. And then I'm like, we'll go on the hike. Hike was only going to be an hour or so long. And as we're in the car and driving to the hike, he's singing songs that are on the radio. I'm like, okay. And I'm like literally been up for 15 minutes at this point. Because I brushed my teeth, washed my face, put a hat on, changed in some hiking clothes, and then we were out the door. So like I made water. Like I had no time to kind of like adjust to getting ready for the day, like to even wake up totally. And he's singing and stuff. And I don't know what kind of music it was. It just was, I swear, I think it said the Tootsie soundtrack at something, or it came up on the screen. I'm like, what is he listening to? Because he listens to all types of music. So short drive to the hike. We go on the hike. We're talking. And sometimes like I just like don't feel like talking, and it could be with Andrew. It's not anything to do with Andrew. It could be with anyone. Sometimes I just don't feel like fucking talking. Even when I go on vacation with people, sometimes I just need like a half a day or a few hours. Just like don't talk to me because I'm so sick of the fucking noise. And so we go on this hike. He's talking the entire time. I am talking back some, and then we get in the car, and then we're back to the fucking Tootsie soundtrack or whatever soundtrack it is. And he's like, oh, this is such a good song. And he's singing the words, but he doesn't know the words. I'm like, you don't know the word. And I said, you don't know the words to this song. And he starts going, da, 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 da. And he like pretending that he knows them, like making up words and stuff. I'm like, okay, that made it worse. Well, I don't know what's worse. Like, are you saying like the words like 0.2 seconds after the words come out, so you're trying to sing along, or now you're making up words, and now you're just going la 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 la, like you're just like. So again, I feel like this is not directed totally at Andrew. This is just like overall just my mood this morning, and it had nothing to do with Andrew because I love him very much. And I could have been with anybody that was doing this today, and it would have been just as annoying. So I'm not picking on my husband, but we get home. I'm like, I'm going to take a shower. I had an appointment I had to go to. Get in the shower. As I'm getting in the shower, I hear him in the bedroom singing that same fucking Tootsie song. I have to look up what song that was. No, I don't. I don't even want to know because then it will be in my head. So he's singing the song, but still doesn't know the words. And then I get out of the shower, drying off, brushing my teeth, and he's like still singing the fucking song. So this is like within 20 minutes, he's still trying to sing a song that he doesn't know the words to. So we're sitting there. I'm sitting there getting ready. I get dressed. I come out. He's like, okay, I'm going to take a shower now so I can go to my appointment. I'm like, great. He's in the shower singing the fucking song that he still doesn't know the words to, making them up as he goes along. And then he comes out here, oh, you want to hear this verse of the song I'm making up? I'm like, no, I just heard it. You were in the shower. I'm laying out here in the bed, or sitting on the bed, like working on my computer. Like I heard the song in the car. I heard it when I got home I heard it when I was in the shower, and I heard it while you were in the shower. And now you want to say it again? No, you don't know the words. I don't like the song. And this is what came to my mind as he's doing this. You know, whenever there's like a kid, like ask 1,000 questions. I'm trying to think of like what age a kid does that. Maybe like 3 or 4, where it's nonstop because you're so curious and they have to ask about everything, and they ask question after question, and they just don't shut up. That's who Andrew was this morning. He was that 4-year-old, 3-year-old kid that just wouldn't shut up this morning. And then he's like, I'm leaving for my appointment. I'm like, bye. Because if he didn't leave, I was going to go to my bedroom and close the door and tell him I was taking a nap. And I wasn't going to take a nap, but I was going to pretend I was taking a nap just to have quiet time. Because I'm just like, he just wouldn't stop talking today. I'm like, why? Why are you talking so much? But yeah, that was what he did. He talked and talked and talked and talked. And he does that a lot. We were at dinner the other night with a friend, and he doesn't go out to dinner a lot anymore because he just doesn't feel like being social, and he thinks like dinners are stupid and stuff. I don't know. I'm the opposite. I love going to dinners. I love socializing and talking. But he doesn't want to go to dinners and stuff. So we had a friend in town. We went to dinner, and he got all his talking out in that one dinner. And then at one point I'm trying to say something. He gives me this like side-eyed look like, oh, you're going to talk now? As if I was interrupting him. No, I'm just trying to be part of the conversation at least. I'm not trying to take it over. Like you're talking and I'm here. There's only 3 of us at the table. So maybe, but I feel like he just wanted us to look at him and just hear him talk. So it's kind of what we did. But anyway, let me tell you about my guest today. My guest today is Dr. Frank, and awesome guest. Dr. Frank's a New Yorker. There's been lots of like places he's worked and I worked, and we've had lots of paths that have kind of almost collided in other ways. And so like there was just like a familiarity with him as I was talking with him and interviewing. He just reminded me of almost like a friend or somebody I know, and I still can't like pinpoint it. Maybe I actually have met him before and I just can't remember where, because New York is big, but it's actually not that big. Like I feel like everybody ends up, you end up knowing so many people in New York, and it's the gay communities. I don't know, I feel like you end up knowing everybody at some point in the gay community in New York. That sounds strange, but it's kind of true. Anyway, enjoy my interview with Dr. Frank, and I'll be back tomorrow with a brand new guest. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I have a brand new guest for you, and we have so much to talk about. I have like a million things I want to talk to him about, and I'm going to just jump right in. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you.
So for the people that are hearing about you the first time, you're a physician, you're a certified health coach, you're an author now. So how do all those pieces fit together for you? Talk to me about that.
Well, I'm gay and I'm ambitious. What can I tell you? No, I mean, it really all came together because I am a physician by training. That's my primary role. And for many, many years, I treated people living with HIV. And a lot of that work had to deal with stigma. And I became a big proponent for HIV rights, and I became an advocate, and I worked at Gay Men's Health Crisis. So really immersed myself in gay world. I mean, HIV was part of my life, not only my career, but my family, my friends. And, when you're in that immersive experience, you really understand where you come up. And we all pretty much have a very similar way of growing up with the guilt and the shame of being gay and not really understanding it and being apart from our families and possibly our friends and teachers and everybody at school. And like many young gay people, I was bullied at school, and that propelled my parents to ask me or force me to join the Boy Scouts. Unfortunately, I was sexually abused for 3 years. From the time I was 11 to 13. Cut to many, many years later, where I was a physician now writing for The Advocate, writing a health column, and I wrote a book about gay men's health. And I went on a book tour, and I met some folks from my past, and it spurred a memory of my child molester. And I looked him up and found out the year after I told, and he stepped down and didn't go to prison because they shamed my parents into thinking this was the best thing to do for me. He adopted a boy, wrote a book, and became Father of the Year.
Are you kidding me?
No, and it gets worse. So me, being the Nancy Drew that I am, looked him up online. Now you have to remember, this wasn't when we had Google, but it wasn't really up to where we are right now. And I found him and I called him. And of course he didn't remember me. And if you know anything about pedophiles and child molesters, somebody said something really profound to me. They said, child molesters see children as an alcoholic sees a glass of wine. You're just another glass of Chardonnay. He doesn't know who you are. And he didn't. And he proceeded to tell me that not only did he adopt a boy, but since then he adopted 15 more boys who had special needs. Well, I won't go into the whole story, but needless to say, I worked with the police. I wore a wiretap. I mean, I'm shocked even telling this story because I can't believe it was my life.
Yeah.
And we brought him to justice, and it was great. And I wrote a memoir about it. And with years of therapy, I thought I had really come to terms with the guilt and the shame that many gay boys and girls feel, let's say LGBTQIA right now, because we all have that feelings of shame and guilt about being gay. And then, of course, being molested, feeling the guilt and shame that you somehow brought it on yourself. And so I worked with some amazing therapists. I thought I had it all figured out. I became a successful doctor and I'm writing books and everything's great. I found love. And then 2020 happened and we all went through that experience together of being in isolation during COVID. And it was then simultaneously I was part of a class action suit to sue the Boy Scouts of America. 90,000 survivors of child sexual abuse in the Boy Scouts of America. And we had won a landmark decision, but there was one caveat. I had to fill out a 47-page questionnaire and recount in graphic detail what had happened to me when I was 11. So I think when you look at the statistics now, millions of people started abusing alcohol during the quarantine and because we were living in isolation. And I certainly was one of them. And filling out that questionnaire was my rock bottom. I don't even remember days of it. I was blacked out. And I looked in the mirror one day and I said, how did I get here? You know, I had a very successful life. I'm a physician. I put him in prison. I did everything. But it really made me think of what I had been doing, not only as a physician, but as a coach, working with people, not only with HIV, but people who suffered childhood trauma. And the one thing that kept coming up was the shame. And it came to me very clearly, what if we're not meant to avoid the shame? What if we're supposed to confront it and let it teach us what we need to know? So for the past 5 years, I've been working on the framework that I developed called the Compass. And that's why I'm here now. We're talking about the book, The Shame Compass, which I'm very excited about. So that's my very long elevator pitch of how I got here.
First of all, just to kind of go back, the fact that this person was able to adopt not one, but an additional 15 children is like, how did the system fail like this? Like,
he was a single man. It wasn't like he was posing as some, husband and with children. He was a single male, but he was a police officer and he was highly decorated. I just think there are cracks in the system. And when I did speak to the boys that he had adopted, because I did, the very, very first one escaped, which we didn't hear about. They were on the Today Show together. Can you believe this? And when I spoke to him, I said, but, how did this happen? And he said, Dr. Spinelli, you don't know anything about foster homes. This kind of stuff happens all the time. Sexual abuse in foster families happens. And that's the reality of it. And while there are probably very good foster parents, unfortunately, there are very bad ones who abuse the system because, like so many things, like the Catholic Church, like the Boy Scouts of America, like foster families, they attract pedophiles because they have access to children. Yeah. So the screening needs to be even that much more than it is. But unfortunately, resources are, they're just tight, and we just don't have the luxury of interviewing and following up with everyone. And that's why I became such an advocate for child sexual abuse, because I considered myself very lucky. I went to medical school. By all accounts, I became a success.
Yeah.
But still, I understood feeling that tremendous amount of shame and how it just persisted with me. And so when I work with people now and they say to me, well, how do I get past all this? I go, you will never get past this. The good news is you can live with it. And how it really manifests today with all types of shame, by the way. It's not just being molested. I mean, there are a lot of individuals who feel shame about being gay. There are individuals who feel shame because of religion or culture or just even the circumstances where they live. And so what I tell them is that when you're ready and you're able to confront the shame and observe it compassionately and understand where it originates, the mapping process, and I'm giving you the COMPAS,
Yeah.
but it does take a part of you that's willing to do the work. But I don't tell people that you'll get over it and we'll all forget about it. You will never forget about it, but how you deal with it. Because in my real life, I realized that I had many bosses that when they talked to me in a certain way, I reacted. And that's because I was thinking about my child molester. I heard him. So how I process it now is much different.
So part of what you say is that shame isn't something you can get rid of, right? So it's something that you have to read. So that's, in a lot of ways, it's the opposite of what most of us are taught a lot of times. So
right. But it's not about it's never going to go away. It's about understanding it and processing it so that you have shame literacy, that I, as Frank Spinelli, can say to myself, oh, you know what? My boss is triggering me. I know that tone. Okay, Frank, what is this? This is that Bill Fox thing, the guy who molested you. Okay, I'm not a little boy. I'm an adult man. I'm a physician. And it is being able to parent yourself. And I think it takes work. It takes learning the skills to be fluent so that you're not stymied when somebody says something to you. You're not isolating. And one of the things I learned from all this research is that the one thing shame wants is for you to be isolated. It breeds in this isolation. And the only way to combat shame is community, by being here, by sharing your story. So many people that I work with, especially who have alcohol use disorder, feel guilt and shame, so they drink, and then they feel guilt and shame about drinking, and so then they drink to quell the guilt and shame. So it really is impactful, especially for your audience or the LGBTQIA community, because we already have that level of guilt and shame. And then if you have a traumatic childhood, whether you were bullied or beaten or molested, you carry that with you. And I think it's really important for us to realize that we can grow, we can flourish, obviously, but how we become fluent and sustain and integrate shame is really critical.
So you're a successful doctor. You've had a successful career and a life, but you were privately kind of struggling with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And with your husband, even, like, how did he react to this? How did you bring him into the conversation with you about this, and was he a help kind of getting you past? I don't know if getting past it is the right way to describe it, but to really talk about, it's almost like you were living in two different worlds in a way, right? Because you were living in a world where you were a highly successful doctor, had a great career, you have a husband, everything looks amazing on paper, but then, like, you're struggling with all these things on the side. So how did you end up kind of bringing that and getting to a good place?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you hit it the nail on the head. I was living a double life. And anybody who's experienced trauma understands that duality, because why? You dissociate. You're dissociating to protect yourself. So on the exterior, I'm Dr. Frank Spinelli. I'm going to work. I'm doing everything I need to do. I'm taking care of people. And then at home, I'm dissociating, or I certainly experiencing highs and lows of depression, medicating, many people that I worked with who had the same problems relied on drugs, alcohol. Some people became addicted to sex, food. It's anything that you can use to sort of make you feel good, but it's a trap because you don't feel good. You're only creating the shame spiral. I happened to marry a physician who is an amazingly patient person. I think it wasn't Italian like me where we talked about everything. So it was very hard for him sometimes to hear this, but I think communication is essential, especially in relationships when one person is going through anything traumatic, whether it's dealing with a trauma or dealing with addiction or dealing with even loss and grief. It's very important for you to communicate. How much they want to hear is dependent on that person. But my husband was just, always there for me. I think after a certain point, it is frustrating. And I admit in the shame compass, I talked about that a lot in the beginning, how I was lying and how I was being secretive. And it went against everything that I had been taught because I had healed, I thought. I thought I had come a long way. And then all of a sudden it showed me that all those pillars that were holding me together overnight were gone. I wasn't going to work. I wasn't communicating and socializing with people. The only thing essential that was open were liquor stores and grocery stores. All of a sudden, every day is Blur's Day. We don't even realize what day it is anymore. And I think that's why I felt the pandemic was sort of this commonality for everyone, because no matter who you are, you went through that. No matter where you lived in the world, you went through that. And you did experience that trauma. And I think personally, even though, we're like 5-6 years out, I don't think we fully appreciated that shared experience we all went through. I think we're all still slightly affected by it, even to this day. And that's really why I was thinking about the book more and more as not a memoir, but how do I write something that was more narrative, nonfiction, self-help.
How did you meet your husband?
Get ready. It was a blind date, which is so funny because like most heterosexual people I know, somebody knew both of us and said, "Oh, you two would be great together." And I was thinking, why? Because we're the
both
only
gay.
two gay. And really that was it. And I just said, "Sure, why not?" And I met him, and it wasn't immediate. He didn't live here. He lived in Boston, incidentally, and we did the back and forth for a little while, and then he moved here, and we gave it a go, and I guess 18 years later, we're doing something right.
Yeah, good. That's amazing. 18 years is a real milestone, especially in the gay world, right?
Oh, yeah, it's a lifetime, and I cannot even saying the words 18. I'm like, wow, where did it all go?
Yeah, me and my husband again together for 27 years.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, so you're one of those like right out of high school.
Right out of college, but yes.
Wow, that is a commitment. That's knowing who you are at an earlier age.
Yeah, I mean, I moved to New York from Miami, and I had no desire to meet anybody because I was done with men because I was sick of them from college,
Sure.
And I just wanted to be, that slutty teen, 20-something year old,
ready to mingle in New
exactly.
York, yeah.
And there he was, and when you're not looking. So
wow, 27 years, good for you.
Yeah, it's crazy. I deserve an award, I think, a lot of times, actually, too. So, how did your husband kind of help guide you through some of these struggles as well? Because I mean, he had to have been a big support for you as well. Just as you were going through, and I want to also just, especially when you're filling out a 47-page document about what happened to you when you were 11 years old. I mean, I can't even imagine having to recount something when you're 11 that's that traumatic, that, has stuck with you. And I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but one question I want to ask, was there a moment where you ever couldn't remember everything. And when you had to fill out this document, it brought things back that you forgot about.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like an avalanche. I mean, it's like that. It's like playing a game of Jenga. You're remembering something, you're putting it back together, and then all of a sudden a flood of memories would come. And, you have to remember at the same time, these memories come to you in waves. And they would also come to me in nightmares. And I had this very vivid, continuous memory of this nightmare that would happen where I was being choked and possibly trying to hold me from speaking the truth. And that's my metaphor for it.
Yeah.
And I would wake up screaming or choking. And how hard that must have been for my husband to, hear this and deal with this. And I felt incredibly guilty and shameful for even bringing this into our home. Not only had he gone through it with me 15 years earlier when I put my child molester in jail, but now here he is going through with me again because of the lawsuit. And when anybody listens to the news and they hear about these damages being awarded, my favorite, my only memory right now is E.C. Carroll going through this with Trump.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, she's getting all these millions. She doesn't just get a check handed to her.
Yeah.
It's never that easy. The process is belabored, and the lawyers are doing everything they can to make this difficult. And so that questionnaire was part of it. And that questionnaire was re-traumatizing. So here I am filling this out, having all these memories coming back to me. And I think in many ways, I didn't appreciate how my own husband was dealing with his own depression with the quarantine, with COVID. So he was dealing with his own feelings of fear, of concern. He, like I, had elderly parents. We were concerned for them. I mean, there was this whole set of circumstances that was bombarding us from all ends. And then here he has me bringing this back into our lives. I'm sure he wasn't happy. And I'm not sure, I know he wasn't happy about the drinking and the lying about it. Well, the one good thing that he did, which was very smart, was we were both drinking. And I think he at a certain point just said, I can't do this anymore. And we had many conversations like where we can't do this anymore. And I realized, I said to myself, who am I? I don't know who this person is. And I had so much more that I wanted from my life. Certainly not this. I'm not someone who ever had a drinking problem.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I wrote this book. You don't need to have a generational history of alcohol use disorder. This can happen to you at any time. And this can happen with anything, whether it's sex or food or drugs or alcohol. And that's why it was very clear that when I work with clients now, I tell them all the time, it's not about the alcohol. Alcohol is what you use. It is the vehicle to which you use to escape. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter. And once we get the alcohol under control, you'll realize your problems are there. That's why we have to work on. That's what we have to deal with. And what is the shame telling you when you're ready to confront it? And not everybody is ready to confront it. Not everybody is willing or interested in going back. Unfortunately, for people who don't want to unpack the past, they're doomed to repeat it in the present. Many adults who have suffered some sort of trauma will revisit the past in the present in the hopes that they can fix it. And they do this subconsciously. It's very common for people, especially who are sexually abused as children, to become promiscuous as adults, to gain control of the sexual situation as a way of commandeering it, because in their minds, they're in control. But it's a maladaptive behavior. It's not really serving you as a person. It's just creating this spiral where you're going to feel guilty about it and shameful, and then you're going to be bad on yourself. One of the things that is very common for most people who experience trauma or shame is that there is this narrator in their head, this voice that tells you you're bad. One of the things that it's important to distinguish is guilt and shame are different. Guilt is, I did something bad and I feel bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
Shame is I am bad. And that voice you hear in your head is not your friend. It's the one that's telling you everything you do wrong and why you don't deserve anything. And we believe this voice. We believe it wholeheartedly. And so part of the process that I talk about in the book is how you have to stop that voice by saying, what is he telling me or she? And what are the facts? It's oftentimes we listen to these thoughts, but they're not facts. They're just thoughts that we tell ourselves. And so we need to prevent ourselves from going down that spiral. But it's very difficult. It's very easy to fall into those old patterns of behavior.
I have two questions for you. One is, there was 95,000 survivors who filed claims, right? So
roughly, yeah.
Yeah. So does that number of people make you feel like, okay, I'm not alone? Did it ever make you feel that way? Or did it give you any comfort? Or did it make you feel something else where maybe you were just disappointed in the system that this happened?
Oh, it made me incredibly angry because it's, first of all, it's grossly underestimated. Those are only the men that came forward.
Yeah.
What about all the men who were too shamed to even come forward? So, and I knew them. I knew men who had been, or boys who had been molested, who were not going to take part in any of this. And then at one point, we were all asked to come down to Delaware, and I met hundreds of men, and I met about a group of 6 or 8 of us, who was represented by the law firm that I was part of, and we all went out to dinner. And it's very odd for me because I'm a survivor, but I'm also a physician, so I'm able to jump in and out of roles.
Yeah.
Where I was sitting at a table listening to these men tell their stories and feeling incredibly sad because each one of them had been broken in such a way that it impacted them on who they were, who their identity was, how they saw themselves. And that, to me, was the biggest tragedy. Again, it's very important for people to understand it's not about the sex. It was about the cruelty and the psychological grooming that goes in place when you are molested. The groomer creates a need in the child to want to please the molester. So you feel incredibly guilty. You also feel incredibly shameful because your body responds to the stimulation. And you think, well, I must have liked it. I must have asked for it. I must have encouraged it. But to get to your question, I was very happy that 95,000 or 90,000 men had come forward. I was very disturbed that it was that many. I was very disturbed that probably it was grossly underestimated. But here's what I'm going to tell you, which was really upsetting. It's not like we got $1 billion and they divide it by 90,000. They had to rank you where you were in the form of abuse. So there was a totem for the abuse, and that's where the survey comes in. So we are now monetizing the acts, which is the complete antithesis of what's really happening psychologically in a victim's mind. So imagine saying, Zach, you had been penetrated, you gave some oral sex, okay, 3 times here, plus what, carry the 1. It's very odd, but this is what we were forced to do. We were forced to create a working document that they then assigned monetary values. This is just disturbing.
Why do it that way? Why?
Because I guess they felt, how else were they going to do this? Because it's so subjective. It's abuse.
Yeah, but why not just divide it? Instead of making people go through that. I mean, I feel like it was like making people relive the trauma again. Right. And yes, is there a fair way to do that? But no, none of this was fair. So I think that I don't know, that's the craziest thing.
Well, to be fair, it was agreed upon by both sides. So they realized that there were men who had been molested for years, and then there were some men who had been molested once, and they felt that that just wasn't fair to give everybody the same amount. I wasn't part of those conversations. We were just getting informed. It seemed like this was the only way to do it, and we had to abide by it. And again, remember, This is not happening overnight. This is taking
Yeah.
years and years. And so, you're getting these updates via email. Then on the other hand, some people needed money. Some people just couldn't hang on. And so the Boy Scouts had, offered like a very small nominal amount of money and just said, will you drop out? And so some people did. I think it's one of those, it's the cruelty of law, the way it had to be prolonged in such a way in the hopes that people would drop out, or attrition, people died. I mean, this took forever.
This is probably a question you may not be able to answer, but I'm going to ask it to see if you do know, because you've had a lot of time to think about this. Why do you think that people molest children? Like, how do people get there? Like, I don't understand how like somebody can have a mind to want to abuse a child like this, because people have to know that they're impacting somebody for the rest of their life by doing this.
Right.
So, and maybe I'm just getting too deep into it psychologically, but I guess I just don't understand like why somebody wouldn't want to go out and just get an adult relationship to fulfill any sexual needs, and why they have to ruin a person's life to do this. Have you
asked myself this? Sure, yeah, of course. I mean, it's a very common question, and you raise very important issues. So the best way to describe this is pedophiles are sexually aroused by children. They see them as objects of desire. The key word here is object. And so that's the grooming period. That's where all of that comes in. Do not for 1 minute fool yourself into believing this is using them for sex. This is power. This is control. Oftentimes, a child molester or a pedophile will groom the entire family because he knows them. There is something very subversive about this. To get to know someone's father, to get access to their son, is really, you have to really step back and think of the psychopathology here. So this isn't just about desire and let me just get off by going with an adult. No, this is, the intent here is to gain control of a family, have access to their child, to violate them. And yeah, they're sociopaths. They're not thinking I'm doing something terrible to a child that's going to potentially damage them for the rest of their life. They're not thinking that. And the reason why I'm remembering something that happened vividly. I saw this wonderful therapist for years. And when I went to the trial and I saw Bill there in the orange jumpsuit and feet shackled and everything, and I just sat there and I looked at him and I was like, look at me. I want you to know I'm here. And he wouldn't, of course. And you know what? In a moment, he looked really old and he looked sad. And I felt bad. So I told my therapist, I said, I felt bad. I felt bad he's just this little old man now. And she's like, that's because you've grown and you have empathy, but he's a monster. And that always stuck with me. There's no way to really figure out what this is. There's a pathology there, but you have a choice. You're not compelled to molest children. You can stop it, but they choose to. It would be like saying, drinking. You have a choice to get behind the wheel. You choose to do so. And I guess that is going to be one of the greatest conundrums that we ever have, because we see it time and time again. Institutionalized child molestation. I mean, we're looking at this Epstein in real time. The protecting, the circling of the wagons that happened certainly with the Boy Scouts, but certainly what you're seeing right now with Jeffrey Epstein and the way everybody is being highly protective because we know what the implications are and they're shocking.
What do you think about chemical castration for people that, because me and my husband have had this conversation. If you get caught molesting a child, like you should be chemically castrated. I know it's extreme, but I think that's...
Well, the problem would be you'd have to you'd have to give them a lobotomy as well, because they're still going to think about it regardless of whether or not they can use their penis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the way they think. It's not really so much the sex act. Like I said, when I was in the process of those 3 years of being molested and groomed, it was the cruelty. It was that was the real thing that put me over the edge at the end. I just couldn't take it anymore. The way he subjected us at Boy Scouts, the way he was cruel to us at camp. And I just felt to myself, why am I putting myself through this? Why am I doing this? And I would try to make myself ill, like get a cold so I didn't have to go on weekend hikes. I mean, it was ridiculous. And it came to the point where my mother realized my son is a mess. And she finally said to me, is he doing something to you? And then that was it.
And that's when you told her?
Yeah, I just said yes. I remember that's all I said. I said yes. And then that started just a real spiral.
And what was their reaction? Were they ready to murder this person?
My parents?
Yeah.
Well, you have to remember that the Boy Scouts was affiliated with our school, which was a Catholic school. So This is embedded not only with the Boy Scouts, but my school, but our church. And so they listened to the Boy Scouts who said, listen, this is going to bring up a lot of stuff for your son. You also have to remember, everybody was protecting me because I was gay. They were like, he's going to be picked on. They're going to think he asked for it. They really did a number on my poor, poor parents. But my father probably wanted to kill him. I don't remember exactly how it played out. I just remember being brought in a room and being told, we're going to let him go. We're going to let him step down. And your family is not going to press charges and everything's going to go back to normal. And of course it did.
Did he ever at any time show any remorse or say he was sorry?
Yes, that's so interesting you asked that. When I did 2 of the wiretaps, the second time, this really great undercover cop, really cool guy. If you know anything about Staten Island or Brooklyn, I mean, just imagine like this undercover cop looks like he should be like at some truck stop in New Jersey. And he was so nice to me, and we were sitting very close, and he's whispering to me and giving me hand signals. And he knew that it was going to be over. And he said to me, he covered the mic and he said, this is your chance to say whatever you want. It's over. Just say whatever you want. And I said, Bill, I just want you to say, I know what I did and I'm sorry. And this is the close he got. He said, if what you say is true, then I'm sorry.
Interesting.
Not a full out apology, but I took it anyway.
Yeah. And let's talk about the framework that the self, the compass. What does that stand for?
So it's the 7 steps that is the compass framework. And really it comes down to, if you're thinking about just trying to organize how you react in the moment during, based on the traumatic childhood, it would take, so I'm going to go through it. So C would be confronting it. If you feel you're at a moment in your life where you want to be able to be fluent in your way you process your trauma. So confronting, observing it. I recommend everyone observe their patterns of behavior with compassion. There's a lot of neuroscience and research to suggest that self-compassion is a very healing tool. And then the mapping is to really understand what the source is. So like I said, for example, for me, it was the childhood trauma that I suffered from ages 11 to 13. And then the P, the first one is processing it. There are 3 different ways we can process it. One is we process trauma and shame through our physical body. Some of us feel intense pain in our chest, or they get numb or weak or dizzy. Understanding that, and then also the story that you tell yourselves when you're narrating this to yourself. And sort of the third one is the relational body, so how you act within the system around you. And then the A is accepting it. And when I say accepting it, I mean integrating it. You will never want to accept something to deny it happened. I always feel that you should never deny what happened to you. You need to accept that it happened. It was not your fault. And you need to integrate this into your life. And then the final S before the last S is really sustaining it and learning to live with this literacy or shame literacy. And I go through it in the book and give examples of how you can practice this. And the last S is optional. The last S is service. Many people who get to a certain point in their recovery are able to discuss it like I'm doing with you. And in doing so, the hope is that I will help people. Not everybody is meant to do this, so it's an optional last S, but those are the 7 steps. And I've written the book in a way that you can read it all the way through, but if you ever needed to go back, you can read certain chapters just to update yourself. And it's written in a way that you will sort of be reminded of the other steps in each one.
What is maybe one of the biggest misconceptions that people carry about shame?
Oh, that they think the voice in their head is telling them something that is true, and that they feel they deserve this for some reason, that they are inherently bad, and that's why bad things happen to them. And that's really just not true at all. Many times trauma happens in our lives and we had nothing to do with it, but it's important for us to understand that it did happen and we should never deny it, and that we need to accept it and integrate it, but certainly to be kind to ourselves. And really, that's the biggest takeaway from the book, I think, is that practice self-compassion, be kind to yourself, and be patient with yourself.
First of all, I mean, I just met you, but I am so proud that you did this. Like, I'm glad that you're part of my community. And because I think it's incredibly brave that you've done this and that you've written this book to help other people. I hope you reflect on that sometimes, where you think about all the people that you're helping with this, because there's so many people that have different types of shame. And maybe even if you helped one person with this book and they could get past this and move past it, because I mean, that's incredible. And I hope that you do think about all the people that you're helping, and that telling your story will help so many different people, whether it was they were molested by a pedophile or they have other things that's happened to them in life. And I think it makes people feel like they're not alone. I think that's just amazing that you're doing this and that you're telling your story. And so I hope you're proud of that. And I hope you see that.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for saying that. It was very, very, very kind of you. And thank you for allowing me this opportunity to talk about it with your viewers.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it's people like you I do this show, because I think it's just, I love people that make a difference. You're an inspiring person, and I just, that's the type of people that I like to, help promote on this show and stuff. So, so the book is called The Shame Compass. I'll put a link in the description of this video or podcast for people to go and get it. Is there anything else you'd want to kind of tell people in closing, if they are feeling this way or they've gone through something traumatic like this? What would you kind of close with?
Oh, yeah. One of the most important things that I've learned myself is that you are not alone. This is not unique to you. Whatever happened to you is not something you brought on or you deserved. But just understand that there are other people like you, and I beg you to reach out any way you can, whether it's through an organization locally, whether it's through me, and you can go to my website. But just reaching out is the first step, because doing this alone is not the way to move forward and not the way to begin the healing process. It's doing it in community, and we have a great community.
Yeah, we do.
Even though people want to tear us apart, we're still thriving.
We are thriving, yes. And it just makes us stronger, I think. So,
yeah, exactly.
Thank you. You were a fantastic. What is your website, by the way, just so people can go to it?
It's easy. It's frankspinelli.com.
Okay. I'll put it in the description also with a link to your book. So thank you so much for being on. Again, you're a fantastic guest, and I'm so glad that I got to have people hear your story and stuff. So thanks again for being on.
Oh, it was a pleasure meeting you.
And if this story resonated with you, please share it and go check out the book. The name of the book again is called The Shame Compass, and check out in the description of the podcast to get a copy of it. Thanks again for being on. I appreciate you.
Thank you.